It was a typical Friday night, and by typical, I mean depressingly mundane. Jack was working late, again, and the kids were off at my parents', probably being spoiled rotten. I was sprawled on the couch, contemplating the life choices that led me to binge-watching bad reality TV, when my phone buzzed. "Drinks and games at my place tonight. You in?" It was Laura, my savior from boredom. A night out? Why not? Anything had to be better than watching another episode of Real Housewives. I arrived at Laura's and instantly felt the shift in energy. The usual crowd was there, but my attention zeroed in on a new face. Tom, Laura's cousin visiting from out of town. Tall, with a smile that could charm the pants off a nun. I made a mental note to thank Laura for inviting someone interesting for once. As the night wore on, the drinking games started. Shots of tequila lined up like little soldiers ready to invade our livers. It didn't take long for inhibitions to vanish. Tom and I ended up on the same team, which meant we were practically glued together. Our playful banter was just an excuse for lingering glances and light touches. Every accidental brush of our hands felt like a jolt of electricity. Was I being obvious? Probably. Did I care? Not a bit. Then came the challenge. Laura, ever the instigator, suggested a dare for the losing team. Naturally, Tom and I lost. Our dare? Kiss for 30 seconds. 30 whole seconds. As our lips met, it was like a fireworks show exploded inside me. A spark I hadn't felt in years, if ever. The kiss left me breathless, and embarrassingly, wanting more. After the game, Tom and I found ourselves alone on the balcony. The night air was thick with tension, and the conversation flowed easily, naturally. We talked about our lives, our dreams, our regrets. Each word seemed to draw us closer, the chemistry between us palpable and intoxicating. It was exhilarating to feel desired, to feel seen. As the night drew to a close, Tom offered to walk me home. Blame it on the alcohol, the thrill of the forbidden, or just plain stupidity, but I accepted. We barely made it to my front door before we were kissing again, this time with a hunger that was impossible to deny. His hands roamed, and I didn't stop him. A line was crossed that I never thought I would even approach, let alone step over. Waking up the next morning, the reality of what I had done hit me like a freight train. Guilt washed over me, accompanied by a shame so intense I could hardly stand it. I replayed the events of the night over and over, each time feeling that same strange excitement mixed with horror. What had I done? What had I become? I vowed then and there to put it all behind me, to focus on my family, my marriage, my kids. But deep down, I knew the truth. That spark, that feeling of being alive again, I wasn't sure I could ever fully let it go. The following week was a special kind of hell. Every mundane task, loading the dishwasher, folding laundry, scrolling through my phone, was interrupted by thoughts of Tom. I felt like a teenager with a crush, except I was a grown woman with a husband and kids. Seriously, what was wrong with me? I found myself constantly checking my phone for any message from Laura, hoping for some flimsy excuse to ask about Tom without being obvious. Then, just as I was beginning to think I might be losing my mind, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Tom. I can't stop thinking about you." My heart raced, pounding in my chest like a warning bell. The temptation to respond was overwhelming, and despite my better judgment, I found myself typing back, "Me too." We arranged to meet at a secluded cafe. The thrill of sneaking around was intoxicating. It was like we were starring in our own little spy movie, only the stakes were my marriage and sanity. We talked for hours, sharing details about our lives, our dreams, and the parts of ourselves we kept hidden from the world. It felt like we were in our own little bubble, separate from reality. Our conversations grew more intimate with each secret meeting. We delved into our deepest desires and fears, baring our souls to each other in a way I hadn't done with Jack in years. It was like discovering a part of myself that had been dormant, and I couldn't get enough. Tom was a drug, and I was hopelessly addicted. The tension between us finally broke one rainy afternoon. We rented a hotel room under fake names, which seemed ridiculously cliché but also thrilling. The afternoon was passionate and wild, unlike anything I'd experienced before. I felt alive, like I was waking up from a long, gray sleep. But lurking in the back of my mind was the guilt, always the guilt. Returning home, I became hyper-vigilant. I deleted messages, kept my phone locked, and concocted elaborate alibis. I was practically living in a spy novel, except there were no cool gadgets, just an ever-present sense of dread. The stress of leading a double life was starting to take its toll. I was constantly on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Despite the thrill, the guilt was consuming me. I started to suspect that Jack might know something. Every glance from him felt like an accusation, and I found myself withdrawing from him and the kids. Dinner conversations became strained, and I avoided his touch, terrified he might sense my betrayal. One night, Jack asked me if everything was okay. His concern was genuine, his eyes searching mine for an answer I wasn't ready to give. "I'm just tired," I lied, forcing a smile. But inside, I was a mess. Every lie felt like a brick being added to a wall between us, and I wondered how long it would take before it came crashing down. Living in a constant state of guilt and paranoia, I began to question every choice I made. The thrill of the affair was overshadowed by the fear of getting caught, and I started to wonder if it was worth it. But the thought of giving up Tom was unbearable. He made me feel alive, seen, and desired in a way I hadn't felt in years. How could I walk away from that? The reality of my situation was sinking in, and it was becoming clear that I was playing a dangerous game. But for now, I was stuck in the middle, torn between the life I had and the one I wanted. And as much as I tried to put it behind me, the spark I felt with Tom was a flame that refused to be extinguished. The days turned into a strange blur. Jack noticed my distance, and being the sweet, clueless husband he is, tried to bridge the gap. Date nights, family outings, you name it, he suggested it. I went along with it, smiling when appropriate, nodding in all the right places, but my heart was elsewhere. In some ridiculous romantic daydream about Tom. I mean, here's Jack, the father of my children, trying to save our marriage, and all I could think about was Tom's stupid, perfect smile. Laura, ever the perceptive one, noticed the change in me. One night, after a few glasses of wine, I finally spilled the beans about the affair. Her eyes nearly popped out of her head. She promised to keep my secret, but the look of betrayal on her face was hard to miss. It was a relief to share the burden, but it also felt like I was betraying her trust, too. I guess I was just adding more bricks to the wall of guilt I was building around myself. Then came the unexpected encounter. I ran into Tom at a friend's party. We hadn't planned it, but there he was, looking like sin incarnate. The surprise was thrilling and terrifying all at once. We stole moments together, whispering like guilty teenagers, careful not to arouse suspicion. The danger only made the whole thing more intoxicating. I felt alive again, but at what cost? Laura, bless her heart, gave me a stern talking to. She warned me about the risks I was taking, recounting tales of marriages that had fallen apart, leaving behind a trail of broken hearts and shattered lives. Her words planted a seed of doubt in my mind. Was this affair really worth the potential fallout? I was playing with fire, and I knew it. But stepping away from Tom felt like cutting off my own limb. Hiding the affair was becoming a full-time job. One evening, Jack found a hotel receipt in my purse. My heart nearly stopped. I managed to lie my way out of it, but the fear of being caught was becoming a constant shadow. I couldn't even enjoy a peaceful moment without worrying about what might come crashing down next. The emotional roller coaster was exhausting. One moment, I was on top of the world, floating on the high of illicit romance. The next, I was drowning in guilt and fear. It was a constant battle between my desires and my conscience. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how much longer I could keep this up. Then came a rare quiet moment. Jack was playing with the kids, their laughter echoing through the house. I watched them, my heart aching. What was I doing? What was I risking? The thought of hurting them was unbearable. They didn't deserve this. Jack didn't deserve this. I knew I had to make a decision before it was too late. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't keep living this double life. The excitement, the thrill, it wasn't worth the potential destruction. I had to choose, and as much as it pained me, I knew what I had to do. I had to end things with Tom, for the sake of my family, for the sake of my sanity. But how do you say goodbye to the person who made you feel alive again? How do you walk away from a connection that shook you to your core? I didn't have the answers, but I knew I had to find them, and fast. The clock was ticking, and every second counted. The affair was a whirlwind, but it was time to step out of the storm and face the reality of my life. It was time to put my family first, to rebuild the trust I had shattered, and to find a way back to the person I used to be. The road ahead was uncertain, but I had to take the first step. I knew it had to end. The affair, the lies, the sneaking around, it all had to stop. So, I arranged to meet Tom one last time, determined to close this chapter of my life. We met at our usual hotel, the place that had become our secret escape. The goodbye was bittersweet. The physical connection was hard to let go, and I found myself clinging to him, wishing things could be different. But deep down, I knew this was the right thing to do. As we kissed goodbye, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. The thrill was over, but so was the guilt. The real test came next. I decided to come clean to Jack. This was, without a doubt, the hardest conversation of my life. I sat him down, my hands trembling, and told him everything. Every detail, every moment, every lie. The devastation in his eyes was almost too much to bear. I watched as his face crumbled, the man I had loved and hurt so deeply grappling with the betrayal. Our marriage would never be the same again, I knew that much. The days following the confession were a blur of tears and arguments. Jack couldn't look at me without anger and hurt. It was like I had driven a stake through his heart. I moved into the guest room, the silence between us a deafening reminder of what I had done. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the sheets felt like an accusation. The house that once felt like home now felt like a prison. We decided to seek marriage counseling. It was a last-ditch effort to save what was left of our marriage. The sessions were intense, forcing us to confront issues we had ignored for years. It was painful, sitting across from each other, bearing our souls in front of a stranger. But it was necessary. I had to face the reasons behind the affair. It wasn't just about Tom. It was about feeling neglected, unappreciated, and lost in the monotony of daily life. Jack had his own grievances, and we realized how much we had drifted apart over the years. Rebuilding trust was the biggest hurdle. Jack struggled to believe anything I said, and I couldn't blame him. I had shattered his trust into a million pieces, and now I had to pick up the shards and try to piece them back together. We set boundaries, worked on communication, and tried to reconnect. It was a slow and painful process, each step forward often met with 2 steps back. Slowly, we began to find a new normal. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but there were moments of connection and understanding that gave me hope. We started to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of honesty, no matter how painful the truth might be. The road to recovery was long and filled with potholes, but we were committed to trying. I still had moments of doubt, times when I questioned if we could ever truly heal from this. But then there were times when Jack would look at me, and I'd see a flicker of the love that once was. Those moments kept me going, gave me the strength to keep fighting for our marriage. We had a long way to go, but we were making progress, one painful step at a time. The affair had changed us both, but it had also forced us to confront the cracks in our relationship. It was up to us to decide if we could fill those cracks and build something stronger from the rubble. In the quiet moments, when the kids were asleep and the house was still, I would lie in bed and reflect on everything that had happened. The choices I had made, the people I had hurt, and the future that lay ahead. It was daunting, but it was also a chance for redemption, a chance to rebuild and hopefully find a way back to each other. Just as Jack and I were beginning to stabilize, fate decided to throw another wrench into the mix. Laura, my so-called confidante, betrayed me. One morning, I found out she had told her husband about my affair, and soon the entire friend group knew. It felt like I was walking around with a scarlet letter plastered on my forehead. I felt exposed, humiliated, and utterly alone as my social circle began to crumble. I confronted Laura, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "Why, Laura, why would you do this to me?" My voice was shaky, caught somewhere between a scream and a sob. She looked genuinely distressed, tears brimming in her eyes. I couldn't keep the secret anymore. I was afraid it would eventually destroy you. Well, congratulations, Laura. Mission accomplished. Our friendship was irrevocably damaged, and I was left to pick up the pieces of my already shattered life. Surprisingly, not everyone turned their backs on me. A few friends stood by me, offering support and understanding. They shared their own struggles and secrets, reminding me that everyone had their battles. It was a small comfort, but a comfort nonetheless. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. Then, just when I thought I couldn't handle any more drama, Tom reached out. He'd heard about the fallout and wanted to see me. My heart ached at the thought of him, but I knew better. The affair had caused enough damage. I needed to focus on my family, not chase after a fantasy that had already wreaked havoc on my life. I told him no, and though it was painful, it was a necessary closure. Jack and I began to reconnect on a deeper level. It was awkward at first, like we were learning to dance all over again but with lead weights tied to our ankles. We started new hobbies together, took short trips, and made an effort to appreciate each other. Slowly, we were rebuilding what we had lost. It wasn't easy, and sometimes it felt like trying to glue together a vase that had been shattered into a million pieces, but we were committed to making it work. Forgiveness was the hardest part. Jack struggled to forgive me, and I struggled to forgive myself. Therapy helped, but it was a daily effort to move past the hurt and rebuild trust. Each day was a challenge, but each small step forward felt like a victory. We made a renewed commitment to each other. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There were no grand gestures or sweeping declarations of love. It was real and raw, acknowledging our flaws and promising to work on our marriage every day. We knew it would be a long road, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. In those quiet moments, when it was just Jack and me, I realized that maybe, just maybe, we could come out of this stronger. The affair had forced us to confront the cracks in our relationship and rebuild our foundation. It was a painful process, but it was also a chance for a fresh start. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Jack reached over and took my hand. "We'll get through this," he said, his voice steady and sure. I squeezed his hand, feeling a warmth spread through me. Yes, we will. It wasn't a promise of perfection, but it was a promise of effort, of commitment. And for now, that was enough. The affair had affected our children more than I realized. Kids are like little detectives, picking up on every whispered argument and lingering glance. They sensed the tension and changes in our relationship, and it broke my heart to see their confusion. Jack and I decided to be honest with them, in an age-appropriate way. We sat them down and reassured them of our love, explaining that Mommy and Daddy were working through some grown-up problems, but it didn't change how much we loved them. It was a tough conversation, but it brought a sense of relief to all of us. We set boundaries with our friends and family. We needed time and space to heal without outside interference. I mean, everyone suddenly had an opinion about our marriage, and I was just about done with unsolicited advice. Focusing on our family became the priority. We needed to rebuild from the inside out, not let external opinions influence us. In a gesture of new beginnings, Jack and I decided to renew our vows in a small, private ceremony. It wasn't the grand affair with 100 guests and a 5-tier cake. It was just us, the kids, and a few close friends. The ceremony was emotional, a symbol of our commitment to each other and our family. It felt like a fresh start, a step towards healing. I also embarked on a journey of personal growth. Joining a support group for women who had affairs was eye-opening. Hearing their stories and sharing mine made me feel less alone. I started journaling, pouring my thoughts and regrets onto paper, and took up meditation to calm the chaos in my mind. Understanding myself better and learning from my mistakes was crucial. Jack and I worked on rekindling our romance. We went on dates, rediscovered our intimacy, and made an effort to keep the spark alive. It wasn't always easy. Some days, it felt forced and awkward, but we pushed through. The small gestures, like holding hands or surprising each other with little notes, made a big difference. It was worth it to see the light slowly return to Jack's eyes when he looked at me. I decided to change careers, seeking something that fulfilled me more. The affair had shown me how unhappy I was in my previous job. I found a position that gave me a sense of purpose and satisfaction. It wasn't just a distraction, it was a necessary change that helped me feel more aligned with who I wanted to be. We also built a support network of friends and family who respected our journey. It was crucial to surround ourselves with positive influences and people who supported our efforts to rebuild. No more toxic friendships or nosy relatives offering judgment instead of help. We needed a circle of trust and encouragement. Our days were filled with small victories and setbacks, but we kept moving forward. The affair had left deep scars, but it also forced us to address issues we had ignored for too long. Each day was a step towards healing, a chance to rebuild our trust and connection. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Jack reached over and took my hand. It wasn't the grand gesture of a Hollywood movie, it was simple and real. "We'll get through this," he said, his voice steady and sure. I squeezed his hand, feeling a warmth spread through me. "Yes, we will," I replied, a quiet promise to keep fighting for our family, for our love. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was our story, and for now, that was enough. Adjusting to a new daily life was like learning to walk again, but with slightly less falling on our faces. Jack and I made changes to ensure better communication and connection. Regular family dinners became a ritual, no phones, no distractions, just us. Weekend outings turned into mini adventures, and we shared responsibilities to strengthen our bond. It wasn't always smooth sailing, but it was worth it. Dealing with flashbacks was another beast altogether. Sometimes, a scent or a song would drag me back to memories of the affair. We learned to handle these moments through open communication and support from our therapist. Talking about it helped diffuse the emotional bombs before they exploded. Each anniversary became a milestone of our progress. We celebrated not just our marriage but the strength and resilience we showed in overcoming the affair. It wasn't a grand celebration but a quiet acknowledgement of how far we had come. Watching our children grow and thrive was a constant reminder of what we were fighting for. Their happiness and stability became our priority. Seeing them flourish brought us a joy that made the struggle worthwhile. We also got involved in our community, volunteering and participating in local events. It was a way to give back and feel connected to something larger than ourselves. Plus, it was nice to be known for something other than the woman who almost wrecked her marriage. Therapy and self-improvement became ongoing processes. We learned to appreciate the journey and the progress we made. I continued my personal growth, journaling, meditating, and attending my support group. Understanding myself better helped me become a better partner. We created new family traditions, celebrating holidays and special occasions in ways that brought us closer. These traditions became the foundation of our new life together. Slowly, we reached a place of acceptance and peace. The affair was a part of our history, but it didn't define us. We chose to focus on the future and the life we were building together. Jack and I learned to support each other's dreams and aspirations. Encouraging each other to pursue passions and interests strengthened our partnership. Beyond romance, we rediscovered our friendship. We laughed together and became each other's confidants once again. Dealing with triggers and difficult emotions was crucial. We developed strategies to face them together, ensuring they didn't undermine our progress. Celebrating small wins, like a good day at work or a meaningful conversation, kept us motivated and positive. Trust was rebuilt daily through consistent actions and honest communication. It was a slow process, but each step forward was a testament to our commitment. Reflecting on our journey, we acknowledged the mistakes and celebrated the growth. It was a reminder of how far we had come and the strength we found in each other. We embraced change and welcomed new opportunities. The affair had changed us, but it also opened doors to new possibilities and a deeper understanding of ourselves. Our bond became stronger through the trials we faced. We learned to appreciate the resilience and love that carried us through the darkest times. Gratitude for the second chance we were given became a constant theme. It was a gift we didn't take for granted, and we cherished every moment together. Living authentically, we committed to being true to ourselves and each other. The affair had taught us the importance of honesty and vulnerability. As we moved forward, we saw this as a new chapter in our lives. The affair was behind us, and we focused on the future we were building together. We built a community of trust with friends and family who supported our journey. It was important to have a network that believed in our commitment to each other. We developed emotional resilience, learning to face challenges together. It was a skill that served us well in all aspects of our lives. We learned to love without fear, embracing the vulnerability that came with true intimacy. It was a love that was deeper and more meaningful than before. We wanted to leave a legacy of love and resilience for our children. Our journey became a testament to the power of forgiveness and commitment. We understood that growth was continuous and committed to always strive for better, both individually and as a couple. Joy returned to our lives in unexpected ways. We found happiness in simple moments and cherished the laughter that filled our home. Our bond became unbreakable. We had faced the storm and emerged stronger. The affair was a chapter in our story, but it didn't define us. We looked forward to the future with hope and excitement. The lessons we learned became the foundation of our new life together. Our love was renewed, stronger and deeper than before. We faced the darkness and found light. Together, we were ready for whatever the future